Hello and welcome to Open Invite. Look, I've got some smoke. I think that's what you're supposed to do on podcasts. But no, I've been really poorly with the flu. I've got some eucalyptus in this bad boy to help me get through. And it kind of looks kind of cool, doesn't it? So anyway, I'm just being silly. Um, yeah, okay, so I just want to say I didn't expect these videos to do so well. So this is a brand new channel. We're like, what, 16 subscribers, and all of you are awesome. And the last video has done hundreds of views, which I know that's not a lot on the world of YouTube, but actually for a brand new channel, that's amazing. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody that's watching, supporting and commenting. I really, really appreciate it. And it kind of points me to keep making these videos and do stuff. So this video is about, as you might have seen in the title, the Shroud of Turin, which is, for those that don't know, a piece of material that is believed that wrapped around Jesus after he was crucified. And I think it's in the Vatican at the moment, or I know the Catholic Church has possession of it. And there has been a lot of studies into it because, well, it's quite an incredible artifact ultimately. And as we've got more and more technology, it's kind of gone more in favour of it being real than not real. So this guy that we're about to watch, he is called, well, I don't know his actual name. I only found him today. His channel's called Capturing Christianity. He's got a very cool setup, I must say. But he is talking about this recent thing, which I heard as well, mentioned in a podcast a while back, and I thought they kind of threw it out there as it's just recently been debunked that the shroud is not real and blah 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 blah. And yeah, basically this video is his take on it, and obviously somebody that studied it more than me. I'm just a humble truck driver with a cold, with man flu. So let's watch it. I'll put a link in the description to his video, and hopefully you'll get something from this, and then we'll talk a little bit about all of it. There we go. Here we go. Let's go. Let's rock and roll.
Head first into Cicero Moraes' bombshell study and see exactly why skeptics are so confident that they've finally debunked the Shroud of Turin. Cicero Moraes, a Brazilian expert renowned for reconstructing historical faces in stunning detail, decided to digitally simulate exactly how a cloth like the shroud would drape over different objects, specifically a real human body versus a sort of shallow sculpture like a medieval bas-relief. First, Moraes carefully built a digital 3D model of a human body matching the proportions of the figure in the shroud, a male approximately 33 years old, thin, and around 5 feet 11 inches tall. That's actually exactly how tall I am. He then meticulously posed this digital figure to mirror the exact positioning
I'm exactly
of the shroud image, as you can see in this figure. Now here's where it gets interesting. Moraes took a digital linen cloth, accurately sized, and ran a fabric dynamic simulation, basically letting gravity drop the virtual cloth onto this 3D body digitally. After mapping the contact points, he flattened the digital cloth to see what kind of image that it produced. The results? They were actually pretty striking, but maybe not what shroud believers ever wanted to see. The simulation showed an image heavily distorted and widened. Moraes likened it to Agamemnon's mask, the famously flattened golden mask from ancient Greece, where the face and body appear stretched unnaturally. This was nothing like the slim, proportional figure seen on the shroud. Then Moraes tried a different approach, a shallow sort of bas-relief sculpture, simulating how medieval artists often worked. He repeated the same fabric simulation, and the result was astonishingly different. The imprint was clear, detailed, and precisely proportional, as you can see in this image. When overlaid onto actual images of the shroud, Moraeus found a near perfect match. He concluded, the pattern corresponds more to a low-relief origin than to the volumetry of a real human body. According to Moraeus, this means the shroud is almost certainly the product of medieval craftsmanship, created by applying pigment or heat to the raised surfaces of a shallow sculpture. He even pointed out how common bas-relief funerary art was during the medieval period, particularly around the time the shroud actually first surfaced historically. His conclusion was very clear and very blunt. The remote possibility of the shroud being a print from a three-dimensional human body still remains. So in other words, Moraeus thinks it's almost virtually impossible for the shroud to be genuine. So is this truly the knockout blow that skeptics claim that it is?
You know what's really interesting about that is I think this is a human trait where you're quite... Let's say you go into disciplinary at work because you've been naughty. Not that I've ever gone to one. But let's say you go to a disciplinary. Quite often, afterwards, you read back what was said. And the bits that you thought were said weren't said, and the bits that you wanted to hear, you took out of context. It happens a lot because your brain wants to hear what it wants, if that makes sense. So, like, I don't subscribe to the Darwin theory because to me, it doesn't make sense. But when I wasn't a Christian, it's a great pathway to not believing. It's a good answer, and you look at that and you go, "Oh yeah, well, yeah, that's true. That's true." Even though there's a lot of people that question it now who are even non-Christian. The body or the flesh of ourselves, our selfishness, would rather accept that this shroud was not real than it being real. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Before shroud believers throw in the towel, there's an enormous problem that Moraeus' research didn't address. Something so crucial, it might completely change how we interpret his results. Before we get to that fatal flaw, let's actually quickly cover what his critics are saying about this new research. Okay, almost immediately after Moraeus' study dropped, scholars pointed out several key oversights. Russ Brolt, a shroud lecturer and researcher, flatly said this, quote, "The work of Cicero Moraeus offers no new information that we didn't already know before." And he's actually right about this. Okay, shroud experts have known for decades that a simple cloth-to-body contact couldn't produce the image that we see on the shroud. Moraeus himself even acknowledged that he didn't address the microscopic or chemical characteristics of the image. He focused strictly on geometry and distortion. So here's why this matters. Okay, studies from the Shroud of Turin Research Project, or STURP, back in 1978, already demonstrated conclusively that there's no pigment, dye, or scorch marks causing the image. The image itself penetrates only the very outermost fibers, an impossible feat for medieval artists. Moreover, STURP showed that the bloodstains came first, before the body image was formed. How could a medieval forger possibly accomplish that kind of precision? And here's something even more significant that Moraeus didn't consider, the so-called cloth collapse hypothesis proposed by physicist Dr.
Sorry, I was coughing
Jackson.
my guts up then.
Jackson theorized that a radiant burst of energy during the resurrection could have projected the body's image vertically onto the cloth without lateral distortion. So in other words, Moraeus assumed that the image had to result from direct contact, which shroud scientists have known for decades simply isn't the case. 3D imaging expert Ray Downing, known for his Real Face of Jesus documentary, summarized it bluntly. Moraeus used off-the-shelf 3D software to state the obvious and grab headlines, without addressing the deeper mysteries like the perfect encoding of subtle 3D data, no residual materials on the cloth, or how parts of the image formed without even touching the body. Having heard now from the critics, let's now turn to the critical flaw in Moraeus' research. As compelling as Moraeus's visuals might seem, his research overlooks one of the most puzzling and famous features of the Shroud, the digital negative phenomenon. Let's slow down for a second because what exactly do we mean by digital negative? Well, when you snap a photo on an old school film camera, what you first see is a negative image, something like this. Notice how the lights and darks are actually reversed. Light areas look dark, dark areas look bright. Now, when you reverse these tones or invert these tones, the result is a positive image that your eye recognizes immediately. In 1898, the photographer Secondo Pia took the first ever photograph of the Shroud, expecting a sort of ordinary relic photo, but when he actually looked at the negative plate, he was stunned. Staring back at him wasn't this vague silhouette that he anticipated, but a very clear, lifelike portrait. Absolutely amazing.
Hang on.
Of the Shroud became the positive portrait.
I'll just move myself out of here. There we go. Look, I put myself down here. That's insane, isn't it? That. So it shouldn't look like that, but it does. And I don't really know how you do that. It's incredible. It's mad. Absolutely mad.
Of the mysterious man that it depicted. It's like the Shroud itself was already some kind of photographic negative. No one knows how. Something absolutely unheard of in the Middle Ages and extremely difficult to reproduce even today. But it gets even stranger. The Shroud image doesn't just have like inverted tones. It actually encodes 3D distance information. When researchers digitally map the brightness of the Shroud image onto height values, a clear three-dimensional representation of a human body emerges, like the iconic 3D rendering that you see here. This means that the intensity of the Shroud's image directly correlates to the distance between cloth and body, producing depth even in areas where the cloth never physically touched the body. And that's something no simple contact imprint or print-based forgery could ever achieve. Now let's circle back to Moraeus' study. Okay, his method reduces the Shroud's image down to a sort of binary scenario. Either the cloth touched the body or it didn't. Look again at his simulation images, okay? See how every point on his model is either red for contact or blue for no contact. This binary approach can't even begin to account for grayscale intensity variations, the very thing needed to produce the negative and its associated 3D effect. In other words, Moraeus' study focuses entirely on geometric fit, how the cloth sort of drapes over an object, but it completely sidesteps the crucial question of how the image actually formed with its photographic characteristics. So here's the bottom line. All right, Moraeus may have convincingly argued that a full body contact scenario doesn't fit the Shroud. Fine. That idea was largely discarded decades ago. No one thinks that. He claims that a low relief bas relief fits better geometrically, but fitting an outline isn't remotely the same as reproducing the photographic negative effect.
Yeah,
because Moraeus' method ignores the most remarkable feature of the Shroud, it leaves the central mystery completely untouched. And that oversight is not minor, it's absolutely fatal. No study can truly claim to debunk the Shroud of Turin without even attempting to explain its defining characteristics. Okay, Moraeus' model, compelling visuals aside, never had a chance to pass that crucial test. But hey, what do you got?
Wow. Okay. So I thought that was really interesting because we've seen a lot of stuff about... I'm looking at the wrong camera. We're seeing lots of stuff about the Shroud of Turin pop up on social media. It's been talked about extensively on podcasts, and I thought that was really interesting because it's a recent attempt at debunking. And what I want to say is, actually, I don't care if it's debunked, because for me, I don't need the Shroud of Turin to be real or not real to prove who Jesus is to me. And I think it's very... the way the world is all about, like, you must believe because the evidence is there, and this points to it, that points to it, and yeah, that's true. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but what I am saying is the bit that a lot of people miss about Christianity is the fact that it's a change of heart. It's the fact that when you accept Jesus into your life and ask him to change your heart and actually have a relationship with you, there is something that physically changes, and you understand who Jesus is, who God is, who the Holy Spirit is. And it doesn't matter to me, in my faith, whether the Shroud of Turin is real or it isn't, because I've got that relationship. I've certainly had that, what's the word, encounter with God. And because I've had that encounter, I know he's real. And even in my faith, when I've struggled at the hardest times to believe who God is, and my mind and my flesh is telling me, no, it can't be real. All this stuff is happening, all these bad things, and what's going on. It puts you in a place of not believing. I could never escape the fact that I'd had an encounter with Jesus. And I'm telling you now, if you're watching this, and you're in a place where you're like, well, science and this, that, and the other. No, ask Jesus to come into your life, change your heart. If you're on the fence, and you really are on the fence, then you've got nothing to lose, have you? Why not just pray, ask Christ into your life, ask him for forgiveness, accept that he is God, and he loves you, and he died for your sins, and just see what happens. Because I'm telling you now, it'll change your life. It'll change your life. And I know this has not been the longest video, but I'm fighting man flu, and I've been praying. My wife is sick of me, but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thank you to this chap for making such a fantastic video about it. I wish I was as good a communicator as he is, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you all on the flip flop, and God bless.